Depth only matters if your arms hold up. And for the Rays, a reunion is the answer.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Rays podcast. Locked On Rays is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we are Kevin and Ulises.
And we are lifelong Rays fans who have been podcasting about the Rays since 2019.
Later on today's show, we dive into what a contract extension could look like for one Griffin Jax. In a few minutes, the Rays, though, would be wise to also spend money on Zack Littell. But to start, why a reunion with Zack Littell could be in the works.
And we're going to talk about all of that thanks to Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. You're right, Kevin. Signing Zack Littell will provide stability for both the player and the team. And I know what people are saying right now. What are you talking about? Zack Littell? He's no splashy signing. And I'm here to tell you, you're right. But I don't want to sign him because he's a splashy free agent. I'm signing him because the Rays need rotation depth. We have gone over it, and we will keep going over it. You can't just count on Pepio, Drew Rasmussen, and Shane Baz. That you need more than that. After that, the names start to get thin. You need somebody who is going to show up and more likely than not give you a quality start, give you 6 innings, keep you in the game, 3 runs, and if you need 7 innings, he can give you that. If you need 8 innings, he can give you that. He can give you 150 plus innings a year. This is why signing Zack Littell makes sense. That's one point. Durability, Kevin.
Yes, indeed. He was as durable as anybody the last couple of years before he was traded to the Cincinnati Reds. And for what it's worth, he had a better tenure with the Rays than the Reds. So maybe he wants to go back to a friendly, comfortable environment. And we know that he is comfortable with the Trop and going back there theoretically. I feel like his repertoire and his pitching metrics would pretty much line up with Tropicana Field. But to your point, yes, the Rays need more depth at starting pitching. And I know we were praising the fact, as we should, that the Rays had 3 starters who gave you 30-plus starts between Pepio, Baz, and Rasmussen. But that cannot be the expectation. Just like we can't have the expectation that Junior Caminero is going to hit 45 home runs in perpetuity or for the next 10 years or as long as he's a Ray. We can't expect that Baz, Raz, and Pepio will be healthy enough to give you another 30-plus start outing apiece or season apiece from them. So you have to have some contingency plans. And I feel like, yes, it might not be as sexy as signing Charlie Morton back in the day or Corey Kluber back in the day, but Zack Littell seems like that would be, again, there wouldn't be a ticker tape parade for signing Zack Littell, but it would be a shrewd move and the right move, in my opinion, for the Rays. And really beyond that, you get Zack Littell back in the fold. I really don't think you have to do that much more. That could pretty much solve the issue or question mark of, do we have enough pitching depth? Because you get him back in the core, then we can, have a conversation about what we're going to get from Ian Seymour, what we're going to get from Hauser, or not Hauser, but Boyle, what we could get from, another of the other cast of characters, if you will.
Because now you shift down. Zack Littell could be your number 3 now. So Shane Baz could be your number 4. I feel pretty good about Shane Baz being a number 4 because I expect a step in the right direction for Shane Baz in next year in 2026. So that also is a factor. And let's move on from the durability factor, which is very important because it also affects your bullpen, people. Because you can't just be using your bullpen April and May and June because you guys guess July, August, September, they're dead. They're gone. Their arms are shot. You can't do that. So you do need to have some length at least every 5 days for a guy that can be, okay, he's dependable for 7. We can count on this guy for 6. Zach Littell has shown time and time again that he does that. Now, you also mentioned, you know what? Let's not look at the Reds numbers too much, because you know what? I think the Reds numbers are kind of outliers. It was half a season.
Yeah, moving to a new league, new
sandbox.
team in the middle of the season. There's always you always have to kind of not make an excuse, but it's usually a solid reason where a guy might not be as successful of
Comfortable
going to a new team immediately and expected to perform.
I mean, imagine you're just, you pick up your all your things, and now you have to work with different people you've never met before. It would be,
and you have to pitch in a bandbox that is Great American Park.
Exactly, and that's my point. So it's not really that friendly, and his numbers weren't even that bad with the Reds. In 10 games, he had 53 innings pitched, a 4.39 ERA, 4.77 FIP, 41 Ks, 11 walks. So yeah, not a splashy signing, but we are not about a splashy signing right now. What we need is to address the rotation depth. And so you can do that with a guy that gives you durability. And I want to go to the other point, Kevin, which is veteran leadership. You kind of alluded that with Corey Kluber and Charlie Morton. Look, love Drew Rasmussen. I wouldn't consider him a veteran, of like big stature. Yes, he's done great things in the game. All-star this year, a horse, man. He's fantastic. I wouldn't consider him a veteran of that ilk, like Charlie Morton. You've got Pepio. That was basically his first really long season. He gave you 30 starts. He got hurt last year. In 2024, you got Boss, who has been in and out of the injury room and basically his whole career, gave you 30 plus starts. Zach Littell is a guy that has been there, done that, man. I mean, this guy knows about clearing waivers. He knows about picking up your stuff and moving from a city to city. He's now a free agent. I think this is a guy that has had success. And if you look at his numbers in Tropicana Field, look at his 2024 season. We were saying that he was the best Rays starting pitcher in 2024, to the point that he should have been the opening day starter for 2025, Kev.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, is we mentioned all the guys that, made 30 plus starts. Well, 2025, he made 32 starts. 2024, he made 29 starts. So there's a track record and there's an expectation that he can give you close to or near 30 starts. And I'll say this, I would think that the Rays defenders love playing behind Zach Littell, because while everybody loves seeing strikeouts at 99 miles per hour, that is not Zach Littell's game. It is not walking guys and pitching to contact. And he has a tendency to give up some more fly balls. That's fine if you're pitching mostly in the Trop, in some other ballparks as well. But I think him being a pitch to contact type of guy, that kind of, I would almost think excites the infielders and the outfielders of we get to see, we get to experience a little bit more action.
We get to play. We get to actually use our athletic ability today. I think there are a multitude of reasons. If you look at it through this lens, the lens isn't Zach Littell is not a splashy signing. I want XYZ guy. Like, I get it.
Yes.
Me too, bud. But we have to live in the reality that we are. And the reality is, we just heard from the owners, payroll ain't going anywhere. Payroll ain't moving. So you have to live in your Rays reality. We want more. Of course we do. But let's live in the reality. And the reality is rotation depth is an issue. You need veteran leadership there. You need durability. And this guy has shown time and time again that he can provide that. So
yeah. And you need more length too, because with the uncertainty, like you mentioned, the bullpens, with the volatility and the injury risk, and who knows what they're going to do with some guys like Pete Fairbanks, for example. They might say, hey, it's too expensive, we can find a cheaper option. Well, there's another question mark that you have to deal with. And it seems like, at least somewhat recently, the Rays have been a little bit more liberal with having starters that they trust go deeper into games. And Zach Littell is kind of the figurehead for a guy that they'll let go deeper into games.
And that's why we think that he is just the right type of free agent signing that the Rays should go for. But the Rays paid $15 million in rent last year to the New York Yankees, and those funds would be well served to go to Zach Littell. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, and you got to use Game Time. Why? Well, because it's actually fun to get tickets using Game Time. You know why? Because there's no surprise fees. That's my favorite part about Game Time. You don't just get stuck with all these fees at the end of the line that you didn't think that you would get. Okay? It's the price you see. That's the price that you pay. So take advantage and download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you for joining us at Locked On Rays, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Kevin, the economics of signing Zack Littell make a lot of sense. Like I just said, the Rays paid $15 million to the New York Yankees to just be renting the stadium, basically. To be tenants, right? So
that's a lot of money for rent.
That's a lot of money. So given that $15 million were allocated to that last year, hey, that means in theory, because we're not in there, but in theory, those funds should be available this year. Okay. And if they are available, well, I got the right place for you to put those $15 million into the team, and that's signing Zack Littell. I know people are saying like, well, how does that make sense in the economics of it? Well, Zach Littell's salary in 2025 was $5.72 million. Signing him to a 2-year, $15 million deal would bring back that veteran leadership, like we said in segment 1, and he would provide stability, durability, that depth. He's got that rubber arm, Kevin, that we talk about. $15 million for a guy that has faced basically being released from teams, that has jumped from organization to organization. Like him, imagine you telling Zack Littell in 3 years ago, hey, you'll get the opportunity to sign for $15 million. Like he would have said yes. Now, has that changed for him? Maybe, but I don't think that coming back to a place that revitalized his career, that made him go from a guy you didn't want to see coming out of the bullpen, to a guy that we are touting as, hey, you need to put this guy in the opening day starter for 2025. If $15 million would seem like a good thing to go for as a free agent if you're going to that place that gave you so much success.
Indeed. So your ideation is that it would be around a 2-year, $15 million deal. So, call it even $7.5 million per year, give or take, with maybe some incentives lopped in there to sweeten the pot a little bit.
Yes.
I think it makes sense. Look, if he's willing to accept that deal, you try to sign it on the dotted line as quick as you can. You can make the money work, like you mentioned with the Steinbrenner savings, with guys in arbitration who might not be brought back. That's a chunk of change that you can allocate. Furthermore, I would think that Zack Littell coming back to a place where he had success, was comfortable, really was able to bloom as a pitcher. I know that hometown discounts aren't popular nowadays, depending on who your agent is, but Zack Littell seems like the type of guy who would, if he's offered a 2-year, $19 million deal with New York, okay, no, I'd rather sign with Tampa Bay. No state income tax, first of all, so that might be a benefit. And, with Zack Littell, we talked about this before. And just like we mentioned in the first segment, it would not be a quote unquote sexy signing. And that's the reason it makes sense, because I don't think he is as valued necessarily across the league as the Tampa Bay Rays value him in their pitching factory.
Right.
And I feel like that's where you can kind of have a little bit of a leg up with bringing him in. And maybe we're wrong. Maybe there's a team or multiple teams out there that say, hey, we'll give you a 4-year, $50 million deal. Then, okay, we'll shut up.
Okay, then
say,
we
lost that one. But
we will bow out.
Yeah,
On
but
that case.
just like we, kind of were able to find gold with Zach Eflin. I know that was a much bigger deal in comparison. I think you could work out something with bringing back Zack Littell. And just because you sign him to a 2-year, $15 million deal does not mean that you have to pay him all that millions of dollars, because just like we've encountered time and time before, if at midseason you're struggling, you can ship him off for prospects, or you get to the point, God willing, that, Ian Seymour, hey, he needs a spot. Joe Boyle, he needs a spot. Somebody we've never heard of, he needs a spot, and they are a lot cheaper, then you can figure something else out. But at least you would have the insurance of Zach Littell, who we can pretty much bank on. And like you said, the durability factor, I think that he does not, it's not like he's not throwing 99, 100 every time. So I think the injury risk for him is relatively low in comparison to others as well.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, he's also 30 years old, Kev. So when you talk about, oh, well, he might be leaving money on the table if he goes for $15 million for 2 years, is like, he's going to be 32 though when this, theoretical contract expires. 32 years old, you still can make money. So even if he succeeds, then he gets another bag in 2 years. So again, you can make it incentive based also. So if the $15 million are guaranteed, again, for simple math, people, so let's say 7.5 the first year, 7.5 the second year, give them a signing bonus, X amount of money, and then the incentives are innings based. If the Rays are seeing success, you're going to give him more innings. If the Rays, or by starts, if the Rays are seeing success out of him, they're going to give him more starts. And that's good, because if he's giving you more starts, it should theoretically mean, guess what? That he's doing really well. And if you're doing really well, the team should be doing really well. And if the team is not doing really well, but he is, like you're saying, you can always flip him and get interesting arms, like you did exactly that in August, or before August, with the Reds trading him in 2025.
Yes, indeed. So Zach Littell, we're all, as we mentioned in the first two segments, we're all for bringing him back for a multitude of reasons. And I think it could work out for both sides there. And let's hope that the Rays have something up their sleeves, because again, I don't think anybody's out there going and buying a Zach Littell jersey, but he is a key piece, and it allows the Rays to manage their pitching staff better and maybe put less pressure on, Shane Baz, because we're kind of yelling at Shane Baz that, hey, you need to step up and be a number 3 or number 2. Well, you have a stopgap in Zach Littell for a season or two. You can just slide in Shane Baz behind him, a tick or two below him.
And when you're saying stopgap, that's a great point, because now you're not even talking about Joe Boyle and Ian Seymour, but you're also talking about Brody Hopkins, friend of the pod. So like, you can also have, a little bit of stability while your really good nest egg gets going and has some time to season in the minors, and boom, once that's done, they can make that leap.
Yes. Now, from free agent rotation signings like Zach Littell possibly to signing internal options, let's talk a little bit more of the numbers for another pitcher, that is Griffin Jax. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It undoubtedly makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little extra something riding on the action. And whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel, they make the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thank you for listening to the Locked On Rays podcast and making us your very first to listen every day. We appreciate it. We are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Griffin Jax, who we talked about on Monday a little bit, a possible extension for him should look similar to Drew Rasmussen's. That kind of can help tie in this starting rotation a little bit. That's a guy we didn't even bring up in the first two segments, but there is the concept of him going from a reliever to a starter. And if the Rays do that, they could save some money down the line by buying out his arbitration years in 2026 and 2027.
And it, again, wouldn't be that expensive. And I say that because you can take Drew Rasmussen's extension that the Rays did last year with Griffin Jax. Now, again, Drew Rasmussen went from the bullpen to being a starter very successfully. Griffin Jax, there's been talk about that being tried with the Rays. It's been tried with the Twins unsuccessfully. But, you know, if you talk about the financials, the Rays extended Drew Rasmussen. And when you look at the terms, it was 2 years, $8.5 million guaranteed.
He's already surpassed that deal. I think he surpassed that deal in a half season.
In a half a season, he made more value on the field than 8.5 mil. But anyway, 2025, he got paid 2.25 mil. In 2026, he'll get paid 5.75 mil. And in 2027, they've got an option for him for $8 million. So, but again, guaranteed money, 8.5. Now, there is also that signing bonus of $500,000. So you can take this example and put it on the side of Griffin Jax, knowing that it might be even cheaper because Drew Rasmussen had already given you some stability as a starter and given you really good numbers as a starter. And then he gets hurt. Boom, you give him this. So Griffin Jax extension could look like this. And if you now tie it all back into segment 2 and segment 1, folks, guess what? Now you've addressed the rotation depth.
Yeah, you're done. You're done.
From the outside, from free agent signing, from the inside, now being incredibly economical. And now you have names like Ian Seymour and Joe Boyle being 6 and 7 in that rotation depth. Now we all kind of feel a little bit better about the rotation when you say that Ian Seymour and Joe Boyle are number 6 and number 7. Like you should feel way better now because that means if you know baseball, if you know ball, you know that a rotation ain't 5 guys. A rotation in a regular season is going to be 8-9 dudes. You need 8-9 dudes. So the fact that Ian Seymour and Joe Boyle could be 6 and 7s, my gosh, that would give you much better of an optimistic view going into 2026 than without.
The only way that you can ride with 5 starters exclusively for an entire season is if we have a season of 100 games and not 162, and each game is 6 or 7 innings. That's really the only way I think the math would work. And for Griffin Jax, let's remember, he was a starter throughout his minor league career. So the concept is not entirely foreign to him. Moreover, he does have a legitimate 3-pitch mix of the slider, the fastball, the changeup. Now, it'll take some work to link them out. That is what this offseason could be for. And kind of going back to Zach Littell and Drew Rasmussen for that point, you know, those are 2 guys that transitioned from relievers to starters. So I feel like those would be really good mentors and guys for Griffin Jax to side up with to learn some of the tricks of the trade. I mean, it's one thing to have Kyle Snyder telling it to you, but to have one or more than one guy being able to express, hey, this is how I did it successfully. And, you know, you do this right, you could set yourself up for making a lot more money, you know, after this, you know, 2-year deal or post-arbitration deal comes to fruition.
And if you're Griffin Jax coming from the Minnesota Twins organization, guess what? Zach Littell also was in the Twins organization. So then you also have that camaraderie and that way of like, hey, you know how we did it over there. What is different? Like, how can I feed from you because you've been successful enough that you actually made the transition. So you look at that, and then not only the financials with Drew Rasmussen and the extension that could happen, but you're also talking about that Griffin Jax is going to be a free agent after the 2027 season. So then you would be buying the last two RBers, and then you can also add a club option. And what happens to almost every Ray that gets extended, Kevin? Yep, you guessed it. They become a chip in the trade market.
Yes.
If Griffin Jax is successful as a starter, and he's already signed into a team-friendly type extension, boy, oh boy, we know what that could do in a trade deadline or in the offseason after the 2026 season. So I think this is a win-win for both guys because Griffin Jax is a guy who knows about the volatility in the bullpen.
Mhm.
Like, you can see his own numbers, how he's kind of gone up and down, up and down. I mean, this is a guy who has been successful, but he's also had his, share of downturn in Major League Baseball. So to be offered the millions, let's never forget to quote our friend Evan Longoria, who got this great advice from Eric Hinsky. You never say no to your first millions.
Yeah, unless, you think you're Shane McClanahan or something, and even after multiple seasons of missing action that you still can cash in. But Griffin Jax, let's be honest, is no Shane McClanahan. And speaking of that, I really think with these two maneuvers, bringing back Zack Littell or somebody of that ilk and having Griffin Jax become a starter comfortably, you're done with starting pitching. That issue is, for all intents and purposes, solved. You don't need to cross your fingers and hope you get some production from Shane McClanahan. Anything you get from him is a cherry on top.
100%.
So,
again, just look at the rotation depth. If Ian Seymour and Joe Boyle are 6 and 7, now you're putting Shane McClanahan at 8. And I feel incredibly comfortable putting Shane McClanahan as an 8 guy because I know that if he's healthy, he's going to go up to the top of the list. So then I don't care. But I'm not going to expect anything from Shane McClanahan until he's ready to do something. So why not address it now? And these are two economical ways that you can fix the rotation for 2026.
That'd be quite a promotion from for Shane McClanahan. You go from number 8 to number 1 just like that.
When you got the talent
that's
like
the guy
that
can do it. Yeah,
exactly.
All right, there we go. Hey, we're trying to help the Rays out by improving the team in a cost-effective manner. Because again, if their goal is to win more games in 2026, they got to do something. And they have to move some money around and maybe spend a few dollars. Not saying that the payroll has to be $120 million or $110 million, but 80 to 85, you can work with that. But it's going to take lots of maneuvering. And this would at least solve the starting pitching crisis or the depth crisis that we have to think about because it's something we go through every year. You can't just podcast for sure. On that note, we hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe. We will talk to you later.